I was at CSU from, well, not including my undergraduate experience, but professionally, from 1974 until the millennium, 2000. And during that time, I wore many hats, or caps, and they tended to stack one on top of the other, adding new ones, changing it a little, but over the top of those mini caps was one very large hat. And that was centering around being the undergraduate key advisor, became the undergraduate coordinator. I taught classes in adolescent development, families and work, taught courses in the professional skills sequence. I supervised the key advisor, peer advisors. And I also developed and coordinated and supervised our interns in their senior year. And also preview CSU for about 11 years, in which I worked with the incoming freshmen. So always different caps, sometimes stacked a lot, but undergraduates and their experience was the central focus through everything that I did. Well, I retired in December 2000, the millennium. Seemed a time to start new things. And since then, I have, I guess a central theme for this experience of my life is giving back to my community, to Fort Collins, because that's so important to me. And so I've been involved with Art in Public Places, which is responsible for the utility boxes, Pianos About Town, and so on. Fort Collins Museum of Discovery, which is newly opened a year ago. But most of all, I've been involved in my own art. Always. That's been a part of my life, and I've been engaged in that more heavily. Right now, I paint with an experimental group, which is just absolutely fun and cool. We splash, splatter, play, glue, whatever, make messes, occasionally get a product. But it's just been a neat way to do that which I had always done, but to do it more and to do it freely. Oh, my history at CSU began probably shortly after I was born. My family was involved with CSU, and even though we lived in different states, we would come back to Fort Collins often at homecoming. So I always remember being at Aggies or CSU. I then did my undergraduate here from 1965 to 69 and came because my family was here. My grandparents, aunts and uncles in Denver, but it was home. We had traveled and lived all over the country, and I wanted to come back to where I had roots. So CSU, Aggies, if you like, has always been integral to my experience. It's integral to my memories. Driving on the Oval, for instance, I did that nearly every day of my professional life, but I also did it as a child. I still do it now, Saturday mornings. We walk our dog up on campus. So we have the beautiful morning light or the wonderful snows early in the morning with the grays and the lavenders. It's just a special place for me. It's been all my life. I came to pursue, I guess, is an interesting word to think about. In some ways, I think it pursued me. I fell into my job at CSU by accident. I was back, I finished a job up in Wisconsin in a secondary school as a counselor. Been working in Denver on a labor department project with women entering the labor force. Ended, didn't have anything to do, so I came up to look at a second master's degree here at CSU. In the course of that conversation with the department head at that time, got to, you might say, griping about why undergraduates didn't have somebody to help them maneuver through transfer evaluations and major change messes, all of which I had had, numbers of them. Why undergraduates didn't have somebody who helped them transition from being a college student into the world of work, help them build resumes pertinent to their major. And just asking him questions. I had there weren't jobs like that. And he invited me back for a second chat about this second degree. And in doing that, he said, could I do this? Could I work with undergraduate students? And if I could, he would pay my tuition. And I said, boldly treading where no little person had gone before, sure. And started part-time doing key advising, as we came to call it. They needed someone to teach a child development course. Sure, I can do that. Scrambled, did it. Adolescence as a field was rising, was beginning as a field of study. And we then developed a course in adolescent development. I was the one with the experience, having worked with middle schoolers, having worked with college students certainly, and that evolved then into the course that I came to teach almost every semester. So I fell into my role at CSU by accident. My roles grew, evolved, and I grew with it. And a lot of good luck, a lot of tremendous support from 4 different department heads and a strong faculty who, we didn't always agree, but they stood behind a good undergraduate program and good advising. So I was fortunate, I was lucky. Well, I taught a course in adolescent development and young adulthood, which was a 300-level course. One of my absolute most favorite experiences. Part of the reason for enjoying this adolescent development class so much was it was based heavily on theory and research, which was growing and expanding in leaps and bounds. But I'm dealing with students who are in their 20s. So I could approach it from talking about them to segue into you. And they could remember. Plus, they were far enough away, a few years out, that they could enjoy talking about it, let down their hair a little bit, share experiences that a few years ago would have been traumatic. It was also a course in which some of the parts of adolescence and young adulthood that are hard, they could normalize. They could hear others talking, sharing, or they could read about that type of thing and talk about it. One experience that I had occur repeatedly was when we talked about adolescent parental conflict. It's normal, very common, especially in early adolescence, 13, 14. Students would share some of the, let's say, less desirable behaviors they had presented to their parents, especially their mothers. Many students afterward, and this repeated year after year, is, I don't understand how my mother could love me for all that I did. That's a huge thing to share. So this course for me was just always an exciting experience. It never became dull, repetitive, even though we moved within the same theory, some of the classical research. It was always exciting. So that's one of the major courses that was important to me throughout my career. One of the things that I am very, very proud of was the establishing of a key advising position in our department. It really was a statement by our department and a commitment that the undergraduate experience and the development that occurs at that time is significant, that it's important, that students need an advocate, someone to work with them, and that faculty too. There's lots of messes that occur with transcripts, major changes, and so on, but it's also a time of confusion for students, a time of growth and exploration. So I'm really proud that we established that in our department as a central aspect of what is human development. Then also that we integrated within, because it's an overwhelming job in some ways, peer advisors, seniors, who worked with undergraduates doing some of the day-to-day, helping them plan out what the next 3 years is going to be like, helping them say, you need to go talk to somebody, you need to ask somebody this, or so-and-so's class, you know, if you really pay attention and take good notes, it's really not so rough. Or get together and have a study group. That those seniors really helped shape what our undergraduate experience was, helped us do a better job of what we did in terms of the importance of undergraduate. I'm very, very proud of that and that it still stands. They were just phenomenal folks, the students and they taught me a lot. They taught me what undergraduates can commit to, how hard they can work, how much they can play in a department and want to be very actively in a department. So I grew from them, and they were fun. They were just a hoot. We had some really fun times. The peer advisors one year put on a Peeps festival, in which we had Peeps eating contests, you know, the Easter Peeps. That can be nauseating to even watch. We had a Peeps graffiti board. They had saved up Peeps from Easter, Halloween, and whatever else holidays that now we make Peeps for. We microwaved a few. We had a good time. So it wasn't just all hard work. But I'm very proud of that experience of helping to develop it, seeing it continue, and also seeing key advisors and peer advisors used across campus. So that's something I'm very, very proud of. As our department grew and moved from a child development to a human development, full lifespan, integrating family, and our student population grew, students' interests were working in gerontology, working in youth serving agencies, adolescents, preparing for allied health careers, and so on. So I began, others certainly were instrumental in doing this, establishing a good number of placements off campus in which we worked with the supervisors, contractually agreed that they would work with the students' goals, that the supervisors understood what their background was, because our background's a little different than other helping professions. So those supervisors receive these students, we establish the goals, those students are then visited by the supervisor, which often was me, others became involved, 3 times during their internship experience. We also expanded it to include others in different parts of the country. And other faculty in our department became involved. So it's something that really grew. It's very integrated within our curriculum. Students build to that. We have a professional skills development that goes with that, where we really help students identify what their goals are, what their interests are, talk about what their aptitudes are, how they're unique, but how human development is a central core philosophy as well as a discipline, that we approach our professions from a unique angle, and that they can articulate that because it's relatively new in some ways. So it was building that program and really seeing it refined, and that it's a high quality experience that actually begins in the sophomore year and continues through the senior year. So I'm very proud of that, and I feel it was a part of our department that will stand and does stand. Oh, passion for undergraduates. I think all faculty should have it, but we certainly have passions in many things. I was fortunate that adolescent development, young adult development was something for me that became meaningful in terms of my career. The undergraduate years are times of tremendous growth, tremendous change. We used to commonly believe, I hope this has changed, that anyone entering the university was an adult, fully capable of adult reasoning, adult decisions, and should know exactly what they were doing and where they were going. But yet, the very nature of undergraduate experiences, academic, social, and so on, is a time in which students grow cognitively. The maturation in thinking and integrative thought is tremendous. their relations with family, their peers, their friendships, their loves, grow and change and begin that process of moving toward adulthood. It's a time that is uniquely special. One can only be an entering freshman in college one time in one's life. It's so very unique. But it's also a time for students in which there's a lot of confusion, a lot of opportunities for experimentation, making some wrong decisions, not knowing what you're going to do, how you're going to fit. A time when there's very heavy expectations or perceived expectations from society of what I should do. So for me, those years are real cornerstones as we move out of our childhood, adolescent period and move into that process that we call adulthood. It's a time uniquely special. And even for the non-trads, those who come back to school a bit more matured, they also are in transition. They're in change. That's why they're back. So they're going through a lot of the same exploration, balancing families and work, trying to focus and determine where they're going. So for me, that period of growth and development is very significant in the lifespan and fascinating. I graduated twice from CSU, once as an undergraduate, and that was a pretty standard experience in some ways, except it was outdoors. But I got left, I got forgotten. Everybody thought I had a ride home. So my memories of my graduation day as an undergraduate were walking from Hughes Field clear over to City Park with my high heel shoes in my hand. There was another graduation though that stands as one of the very special memories of my life. I did my PhD at CSU. Took me a while to finish, it truly did, because I was working and it just took me a while. So when it came time to graduate, the graduate school has a separate graduation from undergraduates. I wasn't really connected to that all that much, so wanted to graduate or just walk through with the undergraduates. That was who was special to me. I've gone to 50 something graduations, and I wanted to walk with them. Talked to Ellie Guilfoyle, who was provost at the time, and a friend, and said, could I just walk? Because graduate students didn't just do that. And she said, why not? As only Ellie can say, why not? So as the last undergraduate for our whole college walked by, I fell into the back of the line and kind of trotted up behind. Ellie pulled forward the PhD hood, which is the symbol for having earned a PhD, and hooded me and went through the formal statement of conferring the degree for me at that time. But it was with the undergraduates, which for me was so special. It made that rite of passage, let me be a part of that in an active way. And at the end, my undergraduates, from my students, my HDFS students, rose just cheering. And then their parents, because I'm sure they heard Jill said this, Jill said that, they rose, as did my family, and then our entire undergraduate student body. And yes, it honored me, but it was also in my heart honoring them. It touched my heart, it truly touched my heart. My favorite times, I have many favorite times at CSU. Some of them always center around graduation. As I have said, I went to almost all graduations, both December and May. And when I look back on graduating classes and students, I always see us. And it's not the conferring of the degree part. We meet down in the intramural gym off of Moby, and it's just this buzz, it's just electric. And people getting bobby pins, getting their hats on straight, meeting their friends. And also you get a tinge of sadness with this excitement, that they know things are going to be different. Some of these friends they may not see again. And then we line up each department gets in line and it starts getting more and more, it's real. It's very real. Everybody's in their cap and gowns. All faculty are in their full regalia. This is a big deal. And then we start, and we'd start the lineup. Sometimes I was a marshal, sometimes I was with our students and the other, sometimes I was just marching with our faculty. But we'd line up and you'd start the processions down the great tunnels, or not, they're not tunnels, a hallway outside of Moby. Felt like a tunnel. And you'd hear pomp and circumstance wafting down, and it would get louder and louder. And then through the portals, and the full blast of pomp and circumstance, and the families cheering, and you'd see students just, I mean, they would almost begin that white wobbliness. And as faculty, we sat and listened to each student's name called, their families would cheer. And you think each time how important this is a rite of passage within our culture for families. Sometimes that's their first generation. Sometimes it's many generations that have gone through. It can be parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. It can be daughters and sons. But it represents achievement, meeting goals. It also represents new beginnings, endings. It's an important time. And they were always special. I always went. Strong support from others has been very central to my developing professionally, to my growing with the department. I had 4 department heads that stood by me. Without them, my job wouldn't have existed as it was, faculty. But there were a couple, actually some individuals who played very central roles and taught me some significant things that began the process of shaping me. One was Margaret Hazelius. I'd worked with her a bit as an undergraduate. She was the associate dean of our college. She was also a very good advisor, who had helped dig me out of a couple little holes as an undergraduate, and to whom I had whined significantly about. Of course, I didn't want to take her to. But when I came back, she was the one that really taught me to be a good advocate, a good advisor, to learn how to sometimes know that things aren't chiseled in stone, that you can help students maneuver through what appear to be rules. You can help them understand the whys of what we are asking of them. She was very good. She taught me how to fight. And that was important, and to do it nicely. Margaret Hansen, Marky, was a faculty member in our department, a very special faculty to many of us. She was a strong teacher, taught in an area in children's literature, not an area I've ever dabbled in, but she was a strong teacher. I was faced as a young faculty member with classes of 100, 150, and ideas coming out the yin-yang. I could go and talk to Marky and say, this is what I want to do, and I don't know how to do it with that many people. And she said, well, let's talk about it. Let's think. Let's figure. And she helped me to learn how to become a very creative teacher, a teacher that integrated students within learning experience, and to have the courage to trust that I wanted to do it and we could get there. So she really taught me well to have faith in myself. Janet Fritz, who was a faculty member, started before I did, but very strong commitment to undergraduate programs. And she and I grew together. So I could go with her and talk over ideas, talk over theory. She'd actually get excited. Talk with her about something new I was learning within the area of adolescent development. She was my friend, my colleague, all through my career. Cliff Barber was the last of my department heads. And as well as a colleague before that, Cliff was a person, or is a person, who has incredible integrity. And I think he always stood for the integrity that he showed as I struggled with challenges, when I sometimes was frustrated. He was a powerful role model in my life. Helped me look at what and why I was doing things and advocating for whatever it might have been. So those are 4 that stand, but there are others. I was fortunate to be honored in a range of ways and to be honored for things that I valued. I received a number of awards for teaching, and those were special. I received awards for teaching, excellence in teaching from our college, from the university, and from the Alumni Association. Those were very powerful because teaching was important to me. I also received the Distinguished Service Award for advising. And I did that early in my career, but it stood as a statement in a way that the university valued this and valued the role of advising. Because sometimes it does get kind of fluffed off as a secondary type of thing. And then I later received the Jack Cermak, which is another University Advising Award, which was a good affirmation of that. The greatest honor that I received during my experience at CSU, however, was being invited in December of 1995 to give the commencement address for our college. It's an honor for anyone invited. I think for me, because the undergraduate experience is so special, I was invited because of the awards I had received and the recognition for teaching, but be able to talk not only to the graduates that I knew, because I knew all of our students, but to all of them, to talk to the families and with the families about looking at the continuity of the experience of who they were and who they are, their uniqueness, that they carry forward, that they move not only as unique individuals, but people with special supports. And to be able to share that, and certainly came out much more fluidly, but to be able to share what I really believed was important at that point of time to all of our students and to their families. It was just special. It was the greatest honor of all. Still is. I left what I consider 2 legacies at CSU as well as HDFS. The CSU legacy, as I've thought about it, was being involved in the process of developing what now stands as the university core curriculum. The university core curriculum impacts every single undergraduate student that receives a degree from CSU. We changed that many years ago, but it was a process involving several years and a committee of people from different avenues, different roads within the university, coming together, researching, talking, debating what would be appropriate for all students at CSU, and then agreeing. That took a while. As one person put it, it was a bit like herding cats. And it was. Then getting that curriculum, which not only involves a core, math, science, composition, but integrated experiences within each department that ensure writing and integration of certain things within that discipline that's unique. So it flows all the way through. And then capped with a capstone seminar. All departments, all programs. Getting faculty then to say, yes, we'll do that. So we went out somewhat like missionaries, working with departments, saying, this is what it is, this is what it means, this is what you will need to do too. That still stands. I was pleased to look it up and see that the other day. It stands. Legacy to all students. I was a part of it, not responsible for it. My biggest achievement, though, I believe, was building and integrating the experiential learning program, which involves a practicum for our students and a senior internship with professional skills development courses, a course that goes along with that at both points. During those courses, the experiences of the practica or the internship are integrated within what HDFS is as a discipline. and why that's an asset for them, how that makes them unique, what it means to their unique goals. So if you're a person who is specializing in early childhood elementary education, why you need and benefit from a course in gerontology. So it's helping them understand and integrate that, and then integrate the experiences of the internship especially within their own goals, and to articulate it well. Undergraduate degrees and what they mean and what they entail, regardless of what they are a part of the package that graduating students take with them. If you can't explain it, it just sits as one line on a resume. It's the great asset that they have, especially when it's integrated. Our department does an outstanding job of that. That is a legacy that I am extremely proud of. It has held its stands, and it has refined over the years and will continue. As I have prepared for this interview, I've had the opportunity to think about many experiences and many of our students that I worked with over the years. I'm fortunate to see many of you, the Fort Collins Museum of Discovery, about town, catch up with you. I enjoy that. But what I'd like to say most of all is thank you to the so many of you that let me have the luxury of a job that I loved. The Kits, Martha, Jennifer, Lori's, Jill's, Eric's, Don's, all of you who were peer advisors, undergraduate teaching assistants, those of you who came in with the biggest mess up of transcripts that we'd ever seen, and we ironed it out and you didn't give up. Thank you for letting me have 27 years of being a part of your life, whether it started in preview, or whether you transitioned in through transfer, or whether you just wandered in the door because it was a place and you'd heard somebody would talk. I remember those. And that I was fortunate to be at your graduation. So to each of you, thank you. You made my career very special.